Hey everybody, welcome back once again for another episode of Blazer Metrics podcast. Welcome back, Larry, aka TB Pup. How about Damian Lillard and the Bucks?
Well, they needed every point he gave them.
That's
I don't,
close.
I don't think I didn't see him putting up 39. I figured there was going to be too many shots needed for Middleton and Lopez and of course Giannis and some of the other guys. But and I don't know what Middleton scored tonight, but
Not much.
39 points, my goodness. But you notice that much more of a scoring threat, free throws down the stretch and everything, but they needed every bit of it because on defense, he gave up 31 to his counterpart, Maxi. So he scored a ton, but he gave up a ton. Now he scored more than he gave up, so I guess then they won in a close ball game, but that might be a little bit of an issue. Just defensively, it's a big step back. Offensively, it's a step forward. So I thought that they would run through Philadelphia a lot more than barely beating them by 1 point at home.
Without
But still,
Harden.
well, yeah. So it's an incredible offensive start for him. Um, see how it goes. What more? Fans have to be jacked about that. But in watching the game, there was quite a few things. I'm like, oh, that looks familiar. He just got blown by, and then he, puts up amazing shots from deep, and he had a 4 point play, and kind of a double clutch. And so, Dame doing Dame things, tremendous on the offensive end, and they got the win. So that's all that matters.
Well, it's kind of interesting finally getting to see Dame with the refs in his pocket. He put up 17 free throw attempts in this game.
Yeah, I
17 for
noticed that.
17. His game was not, it was kind of pedestrian without the free throws. He shot 45% from the floor in general, but he only shot 33% from three. And without those 17 free throws, his stats are
Right.
not nearly as impressive.
It was a lot of shots to get 39 points. If you combine his field goals and his free throws. But from an EFG standpoint, because of all those free throws, it looks really good. So yeah, he made his free throws, and he's going to get to the line, and he's going to convert at a really high percentage. That's why some people moving to the Blazers talked about and how many points Ant would put up, and I'm like, well, it's a different type of player. He doesn't get to the foul line. So all
Yeah.
those freebie points that Dame was getting, 10 attempts, 10 trips to the line a night, and he'd make 9 of them. Those are, 9 points on top of whatever his field goals were that you added to his points. Well, Ant's not getting that. He might get 2 free throws a night.
Yeah. Ant has
So I
not
think it's
has
going to
not
be
picked that
tough for
up.
him to just jump into that 25 to 30 points a game that some people are thinking he might get.
And this is why I think Simons is just going to be more similar to CJ, because CJ never figured out how to draw fouls. He was much more comfortable
No,
avoiding contact. And that's one thing that Lillard perfected, was how to get into the paint, connect and convert on his drives, but also draw contact and still score through contact. That's one thing Dame is just really good at. But he
he's
wasn't
tremendous at it.
when he first came in the league. He was not that good at it, and that's something he really worked on. And I just haven't seen that from Simons. That ability to get into the paint, draw contact, and still score through contact. But I saw another
Well,
similarity.
what was that?
Well, I kind of got called out on the forum because in the first quarter and in the third quarter, Dame was just not a part of the offense. Like it's it doesn't seem like he's really learned to play with them yet. And I guess that just makes sense, right? They didn't really play in the preseason. I think maybe he played like one preseason game or something like that. And so like
Right.
Middleton had 5 shot attempts in 16 minutes. He barely played. Lopez had 7 shot attempts in almost 30 minutes. So most of the shots
Yeah.
went to Dame and Giannis. Um, but when in the first quarter and in the third quarter, Dame just kind of like stood around the 3-point line, which really reminded me of what Scoot was doing the other day, where he just kind of
Well,
wasn't involved.
well, and that's a whole different issue. But just to finish up on Dame, Dame can do that for them. In fact, I talked to a buddy of mine today. He's a lot of NBA connections, and we kind of joked about that Dame for what Milwaukee needs. Dame could not play a first half the entire year and could just rest, warm up at halftime, come out, play, start the third, get some rest, and finish the fourth, and that'll be fine. Milwaukee's fine without him in the regular season. It's in the playoffs or at the end of games when they need someone clutch and they need someone to hit free throws so that Giannis doesn't have to do it. I mean, you look at the talent he was out there with, Giannis and Middleton and Lopez and Bobby Portis off the bench and um, uh, oh, shoot, the guy from Phoenix with the long dreadlocks hair.
Um,
Anyhow,
yeah, Crowder.
um, Crowder. Yes, I mean, like, good grief, they are just loaded everywhere. It's not a Dame's. And obviously, he blew up in the first game, but over time, I think that's going to thin out. Or Middleton's really going to have to take a back seat, and I wonder how well that'll sit. You
Yeah.
know,
Well,
seven shots, and Lopez not. I mean, that's some guys really having to adjust their game for day, and that's fine as long as they're winning. People are usually okay, be happy and will be quiet. But that's a big change for them when they were doing fine. I mean, they won a title without him, and then they've had some injuries. But it's that closing few minutes that they need someone for. So if Dame isn't super involved to start a game or it's third quarter, I don't. That's no big deal. Or on the other end, in Portland's case, Scoot needs to be way more involved, and this whole playing him off the ball thing, I think, is just absolute nonsense.
yeah, but the reason why I'm comparing them and why it doesn't make sense to me is that I agree. I don't think Dame needs to put up shots in the first and the third, right? And Dame always used to do that with the Blazers. He would kind of coast in the first quarter and maybe kind of get a feel for the game, and if he needed to turn it on, he would. But what I noticed, especially in those first and third quarters, is that they weren't even having him bring the ball up the court. And that's a similar problem with Scoot, where they're having Simons bring the ball up, or maybe Scoot brings it up and just immediately gives it to Simons and goes over and stands on the 3-point line. And with Dame especially, maybe not as much with Scoot, but with Dame especially, Dame is such a threat when he has the ball in his hands, and he's arguably the best pick and roll guard in the league. So when you take the ball out of his hands and you have like Giannis or Middleton bring the ball up the floor, and you just have Dame sit over on the 3-point line, you just take away a lot of what he brings as a threat, and that he could be running with Giannis or Lopez in the pick and roll, and it just doesn't make sense to me, and I think they're going to learn that. I think it was really stupid.
But Giannis it's Giannis's team, and Giannis bringing the ball up the court is something he's done most of his career, and it has been highly effective. As good as Dame is, more effective than Dame. I mean, Dame, he's an MVP player. Dame's never really approached that. So MVP winner, MVP finals winner. I mean, he's just reached that level. So Dame's going to be the one that's going to have to adjust aside from Giannis, but then it seems like everyone else is going to have to adjust outside of Dame if their shots are going to go down that much. Now, maybe it's one night, so see what happens.
And they haven't played
as
together.
They learn each other.
They haven't played together.
Yeah, they haven't played a lot together.
So anyway, that's enough Dame and Bucks and all that crap. I know it's hard.
It was interesting to watch.
I know it's hard for people to see him do what he does on another team, but this was necessary, which kind of feeds into my next point. And I know that this first game was hard for a lot of fans because the team was just horrible. It was absolutely terrible basketball on both ends. I mean, just they got decimated. And I think anybody who's rational knew that was coming. I think everybody knew we were going to be bad. Everybody knew we were going to lose games. I think some fans get frustrated when there's people that are pointing out criticisms about Billups or, whoever. And I think it's one thing to know that the team's going to be bad and lose games. It's another thing entirely to watch the team come out and look like they haven't prepared at all. And that to me is frustrating. I don't expect them to be good on defense. I don't expect them to be a well-oiled machine. I do expect them to look like they have some kind of plan. Because the way the team looked in this first game was like it was rat ball, I mean, it was like, well, we just run up and down the floor and Simon's ISOs and jacks up shots, or Grant ISOs and jacks up shots, and I just don't see a system. Like it, at least it's the same system we've been watching, right? Like pick, and Ayton is terrible at setting picks, but somebody dribbles the ball.
Aiden's going to have to get better at that.
Yeah.
Because the Blazers don't have anyone as good as Chris Paul to help negotiate that. He's going to have to set a better pick, and it's getting a little late in his career to learn that, but he can, as long as it's something that they really emphasize right from the beginning. Old dog new tricks is tough, but when they come into a new environment, that's when you do that, and that's got to be something that is a serious focus for him. And then to keep him engaged, you have to involve him. I mean, the whole 4 shots for the game thing, and I know he's in foul trouble, but
yeah,
it's like if he thought he wasn't getting any shots in Phoenix, okay, but he was behind
Booker
and Paul, and over the last few years, Booker, Paul, Durant. Just name all the different people that were getting shots, and instead of him, Bridges before he left, and Johnson. So it's like, well, okay, there's no one of that caliber here. So for him to get even less shots here, he's got to be wondering, okay, what the heck was that? Now, yes, foul trouble hurt him, but he's still. I mean, you get 12 boards in 23 minutes?
Yeah. Yep.
So it's not like he just completely disappeared. They just didn't. What we heard the whole preseason, this is going to be Ant and Ayton in a heavy pick and roll, and I don't think I saw Ant and Ayton run more than one pick and roll, and it was just nowhere. No one. There was one pick and roll run with Williams, which they got a dunk out of, but I didn't see anything putting downhill pressure on the rim from using those two bigs in the pick and rolls that we thought we were going to get over and over, which would cause defensive rotation, which would get guys open shots, versus just passing the ball around the perimeter, and just there was no dives, no cuts, no back screens, no anything. Yes, I agree. That part was maybe some plan. You can blame on some infamiliarity, but there's enough guys out there that are veterans that know how to play, that pick things up. Offenses aren't that hard in the NBA. They're all fairly similar. Some of the
and they've had 3 weeks.
Some of the verbiage, some of the play calls are going to be a little different, but it's not that hard. And players have come in here and picked it up in a day or two. Oh, people are so amazed. Oh my gosh, he picked it up so quickly. It's like it's the same stuff he was running where he was before. Yeah, the caliber of player is
since he was a little kid, probably, right? I mean, that's the thing. They've been playing together for 3 weeks. Training camp, preseason, and then the 10 days after preseason. Like, they should have some kind of sets. And I just didn't see anything. Like, it just looked completely disorganized. And I don't see
if there was a pass, it wasn't a continuity pass. It was one player went ISO until they couldn't score, then they passed to another player who would then go ISO until they took a shot or couldn't score and passed it to someone else who did the same thing. There was no flow in terms of, okay, I got an advantage which caused someone to rotate, and now I kick it to someone else who pushes that advantage. That didn't happen hardly all night long.
Well, and Scoot was really the only one that was actually trying to look for open players, and he really should have had at least 7 assists. I think
He
there
should have
were
had more.
probably more,
Guys were
but
bricking some wide open shots.
Grant went 0 for 4 from 3, and I know at least 1 or 2 of those shots came from Scoot. Simons went 2 for 6. Again, another player that bricked one of the wide open looks that Scoot got him. And then Thibault was 2 for 6 and bricked a shot from Scoot. So I think Scoot probably should have had closer to 7 or 8 assists for the game. And I just don't, man, if we're going to be this bad, what's the point of playing guys like Grant? And I don't get
Well,
it,
what's the point of playing Grant if he's going to be that disengaged?
Oh,
That
yeah.
was it was like his head was still on a fashion runway in Paris. He was completely unengaged,
That's what
completely. I'm not. You may not see a worse offensive possession than the 4-on-1 that he had with Shaden out in front for an easy lob, and he throws the ball out of bounds behind the deepest trailer, Scoot, who was on his right, and he threw it behind him.
yeah.
It was the most botched play. It was horrible.
They were talking about that on Danny Morang's show this afternoon about how Grant just did not look engaged at all, like just completely checked out, and that's been a concern, right?
He got his check, and
yeah, he got his money.
and he got 3 rebounds. 2 of those came when there was not another defensive player anywhere in the key. There were 3 to 4 Blazers down there, and the ball just bounced to him. Didn't have his hands up. He wasn't going after the ball. It just came to him. So 1 maybe contested rebound all night long.
Yeah, well, Simons was negative 27 for the game. Grant was negative 22. Ayton was only minus number 5, minus 5. Scoot was minus 16. Rob Williams was minus 23, which is kind of surprising. I thought he played really well. In the 23 minutes that he played, he had 10 points, 7 boards, 3 steals, a block, and he played within the system. Like, whatever system there is. But I actually really like Rob. But I want to go to Scoot because Scoot is, like, I think the topic that a lot of people are buzzing about. I will admit something. I thought Scoot was more NBA ready than he has shown. Just from watching him in the G League, watching the 15 minutes or so that he played in Summer League, I thought, okay, this kid's confident. He's going to come in. He's going to make mistakes, but I thought he was going to be ready for the stage, and that is not the case. I think I still see all the potential. I still think he's going to be a really good player. I think it's going to take longer than I had thought, and I own that. I thought he's going to come in and
19-year-olds game 1, and I think they flashed up some stats of 19-year-old point guards that had started, and I think of the 4 that they put up there, as bad as Scoot was, it was maybe the best game of the 4, and one
I
of them
totally
became
get it.
Rookie
Yeah,
of the Year.
I totally get it.
All-star. He was, but I get what you're saying. I mean, his confidence seemed to disappear in a hurry. I mean, after a few plays.
Well, every game,
some drives where he got blocked, but by the end of the first quarter, he did not have that same zip hop. He looked, oh, this is different. And I mean, his shot, nothing. I think he had an air ball. Nothing was really close.
His shots are not look good. His threes.
I mean, it'll come. I mean, and obviously he looked much better in mop up time. Maybe that'll, he'll go back and look at some film and go, all right. And he's not going to have near the length to play against in the Magic game. I mean,
I think he'll bounce back.
It's going to go from, it's absolutely could be a bounce back. It's at home. I mean, on the road at the Clippers is not the easiest place in the world to start. The Clippers are probably a top 4 team in the West
if they're healthy. Yeah.
So if they're healthy, so and they had everybody that night. So even guys off the bench when he came in with second unit. Well, okay, now he's got to go over and guard Powell, or Powell's guarding him. A real veteran. So that part will come. But there were some mistakes that he made that looked like something you'd see out of a high school point guard, not someone who was a number 3 pick. And It doesn't mean, he's not going to get it. It doesn't, doesn't mean he's a bust or anything like that. But there were some things that I was surprised to see. Um, some of the mistakes are just a lack of anticipation of just better skills, better size, better reaction time. And so it's about improvement. They're not going to win a lot of games. I'm not, the success of this season is not if they win games. The success of this season is how do you see development from, okay, Scoot had a bad first game. How does he bounce back from that? And how does he look going forward? He's going to have ups and downs, but you want to see a somewhat of a trend. If you're looking at that trend line from far away, that it's at least trending up. There's going to be some ups and downs if you look real close. But pull yourself away from it and go, okay, the general direction of that is it's getting better, or he's making less mistakes, or his shot is improving, or his efficiency in the pick and roll is getting better, and defensively he's not getting torched. And I don't expect that it's 19. I mean, there's just not, you don't come into the league as a 19-year-old, especially at that size usually, and make great big contributions.
Yeah, and I think what bothers me is I don't see the point of starting him if you're just gonna have him sit off on the 3-point line while Simons dribbles the air out of the ball, like, or Brogdon. It was both of them, but like Scoot's just he'd bring the ball up the floor, he'd immediately pass it off, and then just go stand with Grant and Thibault, or Grant and Sharp, and just stand there. I mean, it's the Billups offense, and they're just standing like statues around the 3-point line, and I just don't see the value in that. I think Scoot is at his best with the ball in his hands. He is not a selfish player. He's going to look for his teammates. I think giving him those reps of being like, hey, just bring the ball up, initiate the offense, try to get guys open looks. Because if you give the ball to Simons, he's going to call his own number. That's 9 times out of 10 he's going to call his own number.
He's not a, what do you, Simons have 1 assist?
No, he had 4. I mean, he did okay.
Oh, did he? Did he? Okay.
He did okay, but it's not. I think he's not as bad as CJ was, but it's still kind of like CJ caliber assists. I actually think that Sharp has shown to be a better facilitator than Simons. When the ball
Simons they did try and run Simon's best pass of the night. They double teamed him. They gave him the Dame treatment, out 30 feet from the basket, and he managed to semi split that enough and found someone in the weak side corner for a 3. And I mean, it was a great read. It was a very good pass. I'm like, well, okay, if he can do that, awesome. I wanted to see more of him getting big guys involved so that there was a downhill threat off of a lob, and then the defense had to rotate over, so there were guys getting open shots where you're helping them get some offense where maybe they can't create any on their own. Thibault's not creating any offense, but if you've got somebody leaving him to help because of a defensive rotation, that's where he's going to get better shots. Grant, you saw Grant do that last year where he was the recipient of a lot of Dame kickouts.
Yeah, and he used to hit him. He usually
right, and Scoot's a better spot up shooter than he is a pull up shooter. So if he's off the ball, I mean, maybe that's a way he gets started.
I just don't know.
They just didn't use Ayton or Williams in what we thought they would, and so the offense just didn't look like they had a plan. And on defense, for the 3rd year in a row, I don't know how many times I saw multiple players running out at a 3-point shooter, 23, 25 feet from the hoop, and then one dribble and it's a 5-on-3. The Blazers. Maybe I'm missing it, but the Blazers do that, it seems like, more than any other. I don't see other teams doing it that often. Once in a while, but the Blazers do it multiple times a game. And it can't be the personnel, because this personnel is almost all new. Yeah, outside of a couple of guys that are all new. But it's the same thing as it was last year. It's the same thing as it was the year before. It's like, how
they play zone. they're playing
bad on the
zone,
rotations.
and they're playing zone, and that just
But
leaves
there's still
players
zone
wide open.
responsibilities of what you do
Yeah,
and recognition of where people are going. And
but it doesn't help
um,
Aiton. You want to know why Aiton's in foul troubles? Because our guards are terrible
oh,
at defense.
they're terrible. I mean, he was it Plumlee or Zubats that had a straight line drive from like the half court, and Aiton was chasing him, but he was behind us because it was off of a missed shot, so he was trailing, and no one stepped in. I mean, that their center just went all the way to the basket, and finally Aiton has to reach in, and he fouled him, and that
Yeah,
was another. I think that was his fourth foul, and people were banging on Chauncey, which believe me, I'm not a Chauncey fan, but I can see why he left Aiton in because I think Chauncey probably figured, hey, I'm not going to have to play him that much in the second half because we're going to get run out of the building, so he won't play in the fourth quarter anyhow. So he left him in trying to maybe keep it close, and but there was absolutely zero help, and it was with some other veterans on the court, Grant and Thibault and Ant, and it's like, and he looked, he pointed, and he's looking around going, no one stepped out to even edge or slow this
yeah,
guy down at
no.
all. You could see his frustration going, okay, what the heck is this? And it's like, well, this is not the veteran Suns
You are
team
on a
that you're
bad
used to.
team, dude. I mean, yeah, it's.
You're on a
I was listening to Mike Richmond this morning, and he was like, one thing he brought up that he was really disappointed about was that the effort just tanked. Like, yeah, we're losing. Yeah, it's a big deficit, but we just gave up. We just threw in the towel and just stopped trying. And I mean seriously, the way I'm looking at it, like if we're gonna be this bad, get rid of Grant, get rid of Brogdon. Like
get rid of Grant, get rid of
there's
Brogdon,
no reason.
get rid of Thibault.
I'd keep Williams.
There's none.
I'd keep Williams. I like Williams. I like Aiton. I want to give them a shot. I think they're young enough. I'd probably still trade Rob just if the right deal came. Like if Memphis threw like 2 or 3 picks at us or something. Like if they were desperate to get him because they just don't have a center right now. I would probably do it. But Brogdon's a really good player. He is. I think arguably he's better than Simons all around. Not just, I mean, Simons is probably a better scorer, but Brogdon is a better facilitator and a better defender.
Well,
And
volume wise, Ant's a better scorer. Efficiency wise, Brogdon is a way better. I mean,
Yeah.
he was a 50-40-90 guy
Yep.
last year, and he was better than 50-40-90 last time. I think it was 50-66,
he shot really well.
100.
But while he was
So
doing that,
it's
Scoot and Shaden are just standing around, because
right.
he's just dominating the ball.
He's going to be more efficient. He's going to get people involved. He's a better defender than Ant. He's a better passer than Ant. So yeah, he was sixth man of the year. He was rookie of the year. Ant hasn't
He's a good player.
approached either of those levels. So but he's going to take minutes away from Scoot.
And Sharp.
And if this year isn't about if this year isn't about wins, which it will not be, whether we win by lose by 10 or lose by 25. I mean, the final score we lost by 11, but it was
Yeah, it wasn't
a
even
20,
close.
25 point game.
It was almost, I think it was 30 at some point, but yeah.
I think it was 30 at one point.
Yeah.
So it's not about that. And win, it's okay. Experience, development, get out, take your lumps, and mentally see how much you can keep fighting. And you can only, I get guys can only fight so long if you just keep lose, and you're probably not going to play at that 100% level all the time. But game one, that was a little disappointing to see guys just. I mean, Clippers just had like cherry pick break after cherry pick break where there's just like no one back, or it was multiple on one and then just kind of a give up, and this is just dunk, wide open three, and listen, they have a good team. They're a more veteran team. They're more experienced. I would expect them to beat the Blazers. It's how the Blazers really responded and reacted, and that comes from the top down. You take a little bit of your coach, and
Yeah.
I was never a Chauncey fan, and in 2 years and obviously a game, but one game is not it. I wasn't a Chauncey fan last year. I wasn't a Chauncey fan when he got hired.
It's not new.
This is not new.
Um, I just don't.
He's a good guy. I think I think he connects with players, but I don't know that he's good at effectively teaching. And that's what this team needs. There's what, 7 guys on it that are under 20 and under, or no, rookies or 20 and under, because you've got Murray and Kamara that are rookies, but they're 23.
Yeah, I think.
So, but you've got a really, really, maybe it's 7 players with 2 years or less, is something like that.
Yeah,
They are really, really young, and they need someone who is instilling in them good habits, fundamentals, schemes and habits and things like that. And I don't want them to get into this because they're going to lose.
oh yeah, they're gonna
It's
lose
not
a
a matter of when
lot.
they win or lose. So,
Yeah,
but okay, how are you developing and building on that? Because you get out halfway through the season and you're 10-31, or 12 and 20, 29 or whatever, and it's going to be tougher. That stuff has to be instilled early on, so it just becomes second nature, regardless of whether you're winning or losing. Now, the effort it's going to be tough to keep that up when if you're losing as much as I think they will, but it has to be in there from the start. And I haven't seen it before, and didn't see anything last night or in the preseason to tell me that much of that has changed.
I just want to see like ball movement. Like this team has not had good ball movement in a long time, and I'm just sick of it. I'm sick of the ball screen ISO, and it was a Dame staple. It was a CJ staple. It's a Simon staple, and I'm just sick of it. I'm so tired of seeing one player bring the ball up the floor, never pass it, wait for a screen comes, they jack up a shot. Like I'm so tired of that offense. And I just want to see ball
And
movement
Billups,
and player movement. Like I want to see the ball move around to
Steve
several
Jones.
guys. Yeah, exactly. I hear Steve in my head constantly. I mean, it's just because he used to just
Steve
say
Jones,
it
ball movement,
all the time. I mean, there's a whole generation
and
of
who
Blazer
did
fans that don't know what we're talking about. but Steve Jones used to just, Sean Lee would say, you have to make your free throws. Sean Lee was always, you got to make your free throws.
Yep.
And Steve Jones was always ball movement, player movement. And he would be going nuts watching these teams because there is zero ball movement or player movement. And we have really good
and
athletes now.
who did Chauncey Billups play with? Who was his backcourt running mate?
Rip Hamilton,
Who
was
moved more
like Reggie.
than anyone in the league? Yeah, he and Reggie off the ball, move,
And
round
Steph
screens,
Curry,
fight through screen, get open.
Guys that run around.
The defense would have to rotate, and pretty soon someone was out of the right spot, and Rip would get the ball, but then somebody else was overcompensating, and it became thing. That was not a superstar team they were on. That was 5 guys working together. Well, defensively, I guess Wallace would be considered a superstar, but it wasn't a superstar team. There was no one player that was a first team all NBA type player, I don't believe, but they had a scheme and they moved and they got everyone involved and they got open shots out of it, and I see nothing to that effect here.
Well,
at all. I mean, I don't even see an attempt at it. If there was an attempt at it and they didn't execute it properly because they're young, that's one thing. I didn't even see attempts at it most of the time.
I will say this one positive that I was really pleased with was Shaedon Sharpe. 14 points off of 6 of 14 shooting in just a little bit over 28 minutes. His 3-point shot has not been there this year. He was not a bad 3-point shooter last season, but it has not been. He was 1 of 6 from 3-point range in this game. But 14 points, 6 rebounds, which I love. And 4 of those were offensive rebounds. So
offensive. Well, a couple of them were putbacks. Would he have 3 putbacks?
At least 2, 3 putbacks? Maybe 3. Yeah, I can't remember, but he definitely had 2.
At least 2. So even if it was just 2, that means he was 4 for 12 from the field on everything else.
Yeah, and then
So
3
it was
assists.
good thing he was attacking the glass because
Yeah.
it would have been a pretty ugly offensive night otherwise.
I love his rebounding, but he had 3 assists, 1 steal, 0 turnovers. And
Which yeah, that's
he had 4 personal fouls, which kind of sucks. But that for a young guy, for a 20-year-old, that's not surprising. But he was actually, in terms of the plus minus, he was a plus 10, and
yeah.
Kamara was plus 13. So Kamara played just under 16 minutes. I was surprised to see Kamara come in. I thought Walker was going to be the backup power forward, and I know they were.
I
I know
told
they
you
were.
that.
I know they were raving about him, but Walker had been the first guy, one of the first guys off the bench, and he still played. He only played 6.5 minutes though. But at this point, I would just dump Grant and start Kamara. I mean, honestly, I don't see the point. And
Mara does a lot of things that Jabari's got a great nose for the ball rebounding wise. And outside of that, Kamara's a better shooter. He's a better dribbler. I think he's a better defender. He's the better shooter. I think he's the better a lot of things other than rebounding, and he's probably a little more versatile. So I was not surprised at all. In fact, I thought after it was maybe just the second preseason game, I'm like, he's gonna be in front of
yeah, he's in the
Murray for
rotation.
sure and Walker probably.
Yeah, he's in the rotation. But I really do think at this point, just with how bad the team is, I don't want to dump. It's tough. You and I have talked about this in the past. I don't want to dump all the veterans. I think it's important. That's why I don't think I would dump Thibault right off the bat. I think Thibault is a cerebral player. I think he's a good locker room guy.
And he's not going to eat up a lot of minutes.
No, and he's not expensive. So to me, I don't see necessarily any urgency to get rid of him. But Grant and Brogdon, I think, need to be traded by the trade deadline. I don't think it's gonna be soon, but I think trade deadline rolls around.
Brogdon, because he's eating into minutes of guys you need to have on the floor to develop, and Grant because I mean that was the prototypical I just got paid and don't
And
care
I
now
just
game.
don't give a crap.
If I've ever seen
That's
one.
what it felt like. Just does not care.
That was unbelievably. It's like, wow, someone's cashing some checks and doesn't give a rat's
well,
duty.
and he's going to be harder and harder to trade. Over the next few years, because right now he's only making 27.5 million. It jumps up to 29 next season, then 32, then 34, then 36. And I know that salary cap's going up, and their Spotrac is estimating that right now he's at about 20.2% of the cap. Then it goes up to almost 21%. He's hovering around 20%, and then it starts to go down over the next few years. But still, that's just a lot of money to pay for a guy that is not that great, and he's 29. So I think if you're going to trade him, this is the time to trade him. And a lot of teams would love to have a 6'9", long wing that can shoot threes. So I would be looking to trade Grant and Brogdon before the deadline. I don't see the point in keeping those guys. So
I don't either. It's just taking time from guys that need time on the court. It's not going to matter whether those veterans are there or not. Keep a couple, or bring in somebody, your Joanne Howard type. He's just on the last legs and getting ready to be a coach somewhere or something. Other than that, just these guys need to play a lot and take their lumps, and they're going to, and it's okay. I mean, and they may take their lumps next year, which if that's Cooper Flag, I'm fine with that too. But then after that, I mean, even if they do poorly this year and poorly next year, Scoot's going to be what, 21? Shaden will be 22.
Yeah, and
it's
I think
still really young. Still both of them younger than when Dame came into the league.
And there's some really decent looking small forwards in this draft, which is a huge need for us. And whether it's Ron Holland or Edwards, or I can't remember the other guy's name, but there's several small forward / power forward type players that, they're not going to be a superstar. These guys don't really project out to be like, all NBA caliber player most likely, but they could be really solid starters or borderline
I think
all-stars.
Bazulis could be like a Wagner type out of Orlando.
Yeah, and that's fine. That's perfect. That's what we need. We don't need somebody that's like
and with maybe a little better D. I don't know if that's a great comp. I haven't seen him enough, but something like that. Some more size. No more of this 6'5" power small forward stuff. It's Thibault 6'5". If Sharp plays it, he's 6'5". I mean, you're small. I'm just so sick of the small lineup that is poor defensively. Now Thibault's not, but he's very undersized, and then you're trying to make up for the guards who are small and undersized and don't play defense. It's just we've had this problem for so long now. These are new kids, but Ant is still, and Ant tried. I saw that in terms of things that may be a little different. I thought Ant put out more defensive effort last night than what I've seen.
I think he's trying. I don't think it's an effort thing. I just think.
No, I don't think it's that. I don't know that he just has the ability. He can try as hard as he wants.
He's undersized and he's not strong.
But at least he's giving effort. No, he's not strong. Does he weigh 200 pounds?
Maybe, but I mean, I'm sure he's probably 200 pounds. And he's gained a lot of muscle since we drafted him, but that's not a lot, And I just don't. The future of the team is Scoot and Sharp. That's the future. There's no room for Anthony Simons in the future of this team. I just don't see it unless he's willing to come off the bench, and I don't know if that's going to be the case. But if I'm Joe Cronin, I am looking. So this is how I would rank it. I want Grant and Brogdon off the team. I'm looking for draft capital. I'm looking for young players. I would always have an ear open for trades for Simons. I'm not looking to dump him. I'm not looking to just like offload him, for nothing. But if you can pick up a young forward or some really decent draft capital for him, I would do it because I just don't see the point. We don't need a guy that's good at one thing, scoring, and playing the position that our two most promising young players play. I just don't see the point. And we're maybe we're overacting. Maybe the Clippers were just
one game in. The hell you say?
The Clippers are like the worst case scenario for us. They're long, they're athletic, they're experienced, they're veterans. I mean, this was just not a good. And Zubac just killed us. I mean, good God. And so did Plumlee. But they were just scoring at will in the paint, which is just depressing. So it was a worst case scenario. And I really didn't think we looked that bad against Phoenix, but Phoenix was also the preseason, and I don't think they cared that much. So I think Orlando is going to be interesting.
There should be a bounce back. They should look better because Orlando's not as good. I don't know what they're going to do with Ben Caro, but outside of that, and Wagner might go off, but you don't have near the height or explosiveness in the backcourt. Your center is a little bit undersized. It should look better, but you're not going to have a lot of off nights. I mean, there's some good team. There's a lot of good teams in the West, or a lot of teams that are at least going to be competing for a play-in. And it wasn't just Portland. I mean, would you agree that Utah is a much better team?
Oh, they are. Oh, yeah. They are.
And they got run out of their own house at home by Sacramento.
Yeah.
Sacramento just toyed with them.
Sacramento's a good team.
Utah would make a run and get a little bit close, and then the Kings would run away and hide again.
Yeah.
There are just, you go down the list of how many good teams there are, and the Blazers are just not going to have many off nights. And Orlando isn't an off night, but it's not someone that is in your upper half of the league.
Your weight class. They're not. They're not.
Yeah, there are not many in their weight class, but at least they're not going to be just dwarfed. because after that, then they play the only other winnable game for a while might be Detroit, and that's on the road.
Yeah, I'm curious. So if we look at Portland, um, I think we looked at them in one of our last ones. But here's what we got coming up. So it
I mean,
is.
best case scenario in their first 5 games are 2-3, and I think it's more likely they're 1-4.
Yeah, so we've got Orlando uh, at home, and then we go on the road and take on Philly, Toronto, Detroit. I think we could beat Detroit. I do. I think Detroit is terrible.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
Detroit is Detroit the last game on that road trip?
yes, yes, which is not helping. But I
So
still think
that's always the
I don't know if we're gonna steal a game on that trip, that's the one. So, but Philly,
right.
Philly, I mean, Philly looked good without Harden. Maxi's a really good player. Um,
Um,
So I think Philly and Toronto are just Toronto's going to be the same problem that we had against LAC because they've got
the
long,
Clippers, it's a tremendous amount of length.
yeah, they've got length and they're athletic, and I think they're going to challenge a lot of our shots, and I think that that's going to be a rough game for us. But Detroit, I think we have a good shot. Then back to back Memphis at home, and that's a hard one to read. Memphis is missing Jaw. They lost Steven Adams for the season. I just don't really have a good read on them. But then Sacramento, then again we go on the road again. Sacramento, LA, Utah. That's 3 losses right there. I mean
That's 3 losses.
That's 3 losses. Then we play Cleveland.
They're not sweeping Memphis. I mean, there's at least one
No.
loss there,
Yeah.
and I mean, if they start, so that's how many? One, two, five,
Let's say best
6, 7.
case.
That's 10 games.
Let's
Let's
say
do
best
10
case we
games.
beat Orlando, right? Let's say we pull it off. We beat Orlando. We beat Detroit. That's 2 wins, but we lose to Philly, Toronto.
And somehow you split Memphis, you're going to start 3-7.
Yeah, and then we're at home against Cleveland, who's going to whoop our butt. LA again, the Lakers, and then Oklahoma City, and those 2 teams are all going to beat us. Like I don't see that. It's Phoenix.
The losses are going. Listen, you cannot measure this season, and Blazer fans have been either somewhat spoiled by the teams been in contention for playoffs or made the playoffs for a long time, even if they didn't do anything, even if they were never ever ever a contender for the last 20 years,
We've
20
been
plus years.
competitive, right?
It was at least they were competitive on a hot night. They could play with most teams, and or you catch a game where a team didn't care and you win a game against the Warriors or something, and woohoo. And this is not going to be that. This is going to be a long, slow, steady diet of a lot of losses, a win here and there. Celebrate it when you can get it. It's just this is developing a bond with your kid when they start playing sports and they're just not good, and you go and support them anyhow.
I just looking at November, I think we're gonna go 3-15 between now and the end of November because we go and it's a lot on the road too. Oh my goodness! I mean, basically from the 29th of October, we've got what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 10. So we have 10 games on the road in November, and they're pretty big swings. So man, it's gonna be really rough.
That's why it's never too early, and college basketball starts here shortly, and it's never too soon to start scouting and looking at players and
Start
see
watching
which
Ignite
ones
games.
make big jumps up, and
Start watching
and
those
and
Ignite games.
watching G League games, and seriously, because you're looking for who's your next player, and you want Golden State to lose, and so who's your next player maybe from that pick.
Yeah,
You should have 2 picks. One of them should be very good. One of them you hope is late teens, early 20s. Unless somehow there's injuries and they fall into the lottery, it's still top 4 protected. But it's who's the next, and it's got to be some height. It's got to be a taller small forward or an actual power forward. This you know $28 million for 4 rebounds a night nonsense. Even when he was playing well, even last year, yeah, 20 points a game, 4 rebounds. I'm sorry. I know it was Dame's guy, and they signed him, maybe in an attempt to keep Dame here, and that lasted for 5 minutes. Dame requested a trade as soon as they signed him. So he's not going to be engaged here. That kind of happened in Detroit, and he kind of shut it down. He'll be a good player for somebody on a good team. He'll be engaged and he'll put up points and he'll play good defense, and that'll be great. But I don't see that here. And I don't
Um,
see that as the type of example you want around your young guys with that type of effort.
yeah. Yeah, I would keep Thibault. I think Brogdon's fine, but I just don't see the point. Like, he seems to be a positive player in the locker room. He's a good player, but he eats up minutes at the one position that we cannot afford to have somebody eating up minutes. So and if we can get a pick or two out of him, then I think you got to do that. He's 30, and I just don't see the point. Um,
Well,
real
he's not going to be here that long.
No,
He's
I don't
just
think he will
not.
either.
He's going to be. This will, he'll be the good soldier for a while. He's a professional guy, but this isn't going to be fun for him after a while, and he's going to just try and show people that he can play, so they will trade for him, and he can go to a better situation, and Portland gets some assets, and great be done. And if that's what happens with Grant as well, fine. And honestly, start looking, 10, 20 games into the season. It's like, okay, what team had an injury and could use a Grant or a Brogdon, or, they're missing one of those, pieces. And Brogdon's a great piece because he's proved he can come off the bench. So he doesn't come in and have to, upset. A good team's going to have players that are doing well already. They want to add a piece.
Yeah, they're
Unless
missing.
someone were to get injured, they're wanting to add a piece. You don't add someone to, like, oh man, we got this starting point guard. Well, if you had a big hole at starting point guard, you're probably not very good, so you're probably not trading for him. He's
Yeah,
the perfect piece to go add to a contender because he can come off the bench. Grant, can maybe play a couple of spots and be a good defender, and he can score, but he's not going to be a number one. He's not going to come in and upset, another team that's doing well, that's established. So both of those guys, I think, you'll get something out of them because they can't imagine that they would want to be here long. And given Grant's effort, I mean, gee, you don't want it to get so bad where no one will trade for him because he's just stinking it up collecting a check.
yeah. Hey, real quick before we end the show, because we're at around 52 minutes, but just a little bit of Schadenfreude. Suns fans were proclaiming victory and jumping up and down, and we're so happy about Nurk, and Nurk's great and this and that, and we're so happy to be rid of Ayton. And then the Suns blew a lead to the Lakers tonight and ended up losing. Nurk went 1 for 5 for 4 points.
1 for 5, I saw that.
He did have 9 boards and 3 assists and 3 steals, but he had 4 turnovers, 5 personal fouls. Not a great night for Yusuf Nurkic. And then
No,
Little is going to be out of
and
the
that's
league,
going to
man.
happen because who is?
Little. Nas is going to be gone, man. He 0 for 2 in 13 minutes, 2 boards. I mean, just the guy's just not. And they
Well,
need players.
The Suns were without Booker tonight, so that was part of it. So it was just Durant, and when Nurk is more than a complimentary player, and a really good, on a good team or against a good team, that's never been a strong suit for him for very long. So I'm not surprised that happened. I mean, if he had to play, if Davis was playing center, Davis is way
Davis
too
was
quick
playing
for
center,
him, and
yeah.
we'll stretch him out a little bit. And so
Davis had a big night. 30 points, 12 boards. And also shot 9 of 10 for the free throw line. So I would guess that's where a lot of Nurk's fouls came from. But that's the thing. Nurk is inconsistent. He always has been. He can do amazing things. He's a really good player when he clicks, but he is injury prone and inconsistent. So I think Suns fans need to kind of settle down a little bit. Also, I just wanted to
Well,
point out.
I think he'll be good for them. I think it was a good trade for them. Nurk fits them better because they've got all those scores. They don't need Nurk to score. They need him to facilitate, rebound, and play some defense. And that's Aiton wanted to be more involved with that. So Aiton can come here and be more involved. Well, maybe, and Nurk can go there and be a better piece for them, even though I think Aiton's the better player. So it's one of those trades that I think work out well for both. But Portland needs to help these kids take some of the pressure off. Portland needs to go through Aiton a little more, so he, there's some presence there in the middle. There's a threat there in the middle, and so it will open up the game for some of the rest of the players. And that wasn't it from the start, even before he got in foul trouble, which didn't take long. But before he got in foul trouble, they didn't use him. I
Yeah,
thought they would start off with him right off the bat, two or three times out of the first 5 or 6
I did
possessions.
too. I thought they would try to
nope.
establish him, and they just didn't. The other thing is though, so I'm probably gonna do this all season because I just can't help it. But I wanted to see how the Heat did, and the Heat just
They won by
barely,
one against a crappy
barely
Detroit
beat
team.
Detroit. But looking at the ex future Blazers that never were, Tyler Hero needed 24 shots
7 for 24
to get 16 points. 24 shots to get 16 points. 2 of 7 from 3. I am so glad we did not trade for that guy. Caleb Martin, 1 of 7 for 2 points. Jaime Jaquez actually
Yep.
played decent.
Jaquez was 3 for 3,
Yeah, 6 points, 2 steals, 2 assists, 2 boards in 13
and then
minutes. That's
then
not
that
bad.
international
The man of
off-season
mystery.
stud
Yeah.
in Nikolai Jovic, DNP.
Yep. Big old DNPCD. Yeah. So, meanwhile, if you compare that to who we got in the Dame trade, Robert Williams, 10 points, 5 of 7 shooting, 7 boards, 3 steals, 1 block. Malcolm Brogdon, 20 points, 8 of 16 from the floor, 3 of 5 from 3, 2 rebounds, 5 assists. I mean, Kamara was also part of that, 7 points, 2 of 5. 2 of 2 from 3, 2 boards, 1 assist, one block.
Kamara was really more of from the nerd.
The Aiton. I don't even really like to include Aiton or Kamara, but
Right.
Brogdon and Williams, way better players than who was on the table.
And
So,
you've got draft picks coming, and you've got, so there's a bunch. That was never, that whole Miami thing was just always, it was such a joke. And Dame apparently came out the other day,
yeah, he's still whining.
I think it was an Athletic article, and it was kind of whiny. Well, he was irritated that Portland wouldn't do what he wanted. And it's like, really?
I can't
You're
believe
on
he's still
such a
talking
good
about
team.
it. I can't
You're in
believe he's
such
still.
a great situation, and you're still whatever. I just it that you should let that go.
I'm still gonna root for him.
Be mad at Riley because Riley wouldn't offer Jack for you.
I'm still gonna root for him. I actually, one of the main reasons why I wanted to get League Pass this year was to watch the Bucks. I want to see Dame. I would like to see him win a ring. I could not have done that, to be completely honest. If he had been dealt to Miami, I would not have rooted for him. I would have actively rooted against him.
It's easier on the Bucks because you've got. He and Giannis. There was always. There was that thing that it could have been him and Giannis in Portland if we drafted size instead of a Dame duplicate in CJ. But they're a fun team to root for. You got Robin Lopez is over there, and he didn't play tonight, but he's over there. Connaughton's over there. Giannis is such an easy guy to root for. I hope they do well, and there's several teams already that I'm like, okay, Portland's gonna be bad. Who am I gonna root for come playoff time? Well, the Kings are fun as heck to watch. That's just entertaining basketball. Milwaukee is a good team. The Celtics will be fun to watch. You've got Denver still. Jokic, Jokic, you talk about players that don't put in a lot of time in the off season. He didn't want to go to the parade. He wanted to get home. He's dealing with his horses, and then he just steps on the court and it's like, yeah, I'm still the best player out here. He just toyed with
And I have
the
him on my
Lakers.
fantasy team, so I lucked into the first pick. So good old Joker is carrying me hardcore right now. Um, well, okay, so next game's tomorrow. It is at home, so it should be what, like 7:30. I can't remember. Seven
Yeah, I have
o'clock.
to watch that one on. I have to record that one. I've got a football game to go to.
Yeah, 7 o'clock
Last one I get
on
to see
Root.
the kid I coached when he was young
Yeah,
on route.
good old Root Sports. But I actually think we match up well with them because their starters are Fultz, Suggs, Wagner, Bancaro, and Wendell Carter Jr. I think it's still going to be tough,
They
but
don't have much of a bench. We may actually have with
a better
Williams and
bench.
Shaden and
Yeah,
Brogdon. We may actually have a better bench than them.
yeah,
I think that the crowd, you're going to be home. I think the jitters will come off of Scoot.
yeah,
I think Aiden's going to play better. I think they'll probably did some things today to go. Oh, okay, we got to get him more involved than that. 4 shots is just
yeah.
silliness.
So I
And
I think we still might lose, but I think Scoot's going to have a good bounce back game. I'm hoping Aiton has a good game. I'm hoping Grant can actually look like he gives a rat's butt in that game. So I think it's going to be a lot closer. If we get blown out in that one, I'm going to be like, "Ugh, okay, this is going to be a very long
if we
season."
get if we get blown out at home to a team like Orlando, yeah, it could get worse than we think. I mean, but look, I mean, other guy. Look what I think I saw. Houston. Houston got blown out, and the
By
Thompson
Orlando,
twin was
he was
terrible.
terrible. Yeah, absolutely
He was
garbage.
terrible. I mean, what rookie was really? I mean, Wembenyama hit a couple threes, but
Chet looked
three
good.
threes, I think. But outside of that, he defensively he didn't look lost. Defensively, he made an impact, but offensively, he didn't wasn't
Yeah.
that great. I mean, he had 6 points out of side of his threes, where he's just so tall he kind of shoots over people. Um,
Yeah, Amen Thompson.
Brandon Miller wasn't great.
Um,
Thompson wasn't
I
great.
think
Neither
I
of
think
Thompson.
Miller actually had a decent game. Like he
Well, he
shot a
didn't shoot
decent.
well.
I thought he shot okay. I'd have to go look. But Thompson, or was that was the first one of the first games, right?
I didn't see what the
Yeah, here we
Detroit
go.
Thompson did. I saw what the Houston Thompson.
So let's see here. So Brandon Miller shot 5 of 9, 13 points, 3 of 7 from three, 3 boards, 2 assists.
Oh, I didn't think he shot. Okay,
Yeah, he
that's not
actually
bad.
he did decent. I mean, that's really what you're hoping that he does.
He came off. He came off the bench.
Yeah, he
They
came
did
off
not
the
start
bench.
him.
Yeah, yeah, but they have Rozier and Ball, and then they still have Hayward. I just think I think eventually Hayward's going to be gone, and that's where he goes. That's where he fits in. But Thompson shot 3 of 10. He did not start either.
Which one? Houston
Amen.
Thompson or Detroit
Amen.
Thompson?
Houston Thompson did not start. He played 21 minutes. In those 21 minutes, he shot 3 for 10 from the floor, 1 of 7 for three. So at least Scoot knows that he's like not a great 3-point shooter right now and only took 3 shots. Thompson jacked up 7 threes. Like, and his form is broken. 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 4 turnovers, minus 34 for the game. Yikes.
And Oscar Thompson was no better. He was 1 for 7 from the field, 1 for 2. Did have 7 rebounds, 3 assists. Oh,
Wow.
5 blocks. Okay. And 2 turnovers, but he finished with 4 points.
Yeah.
So it's not like Scoot. Scoot didn't play well, but it's not like any of the rest of these guys were setting the world on fire. It's they're rookies.
Yeah,
They're young.
I think Scoot, you can tell when he has the ball in his hands and he's going against guys that are a tier down or maybe 2 tiers down, he dominates. So what he needs to figure out is how to do that against the better competition. And I think it's just going to take him time to figure out how to do that. The moves are there, the athleticism is there. I think he just needs to build up his confidence.
Get used to the speed of it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what he can get away with and what he can't get away with. And I think he just has not figured that out yet. But he's got to develop a shot. He cannot.
Wembanyama shot well, He's 6 for 9, but it was 3 of those were 3. So he only had 3 baskets inside the arc, and he had 5 rebounds.
Yeah.
And 5 turnovers. So he
was in foul trouble, right?
Not like he was setting the world. Yeah, he had 5 fouls.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So
5 fouls, 5 turnovers. So no rookie, which is not surprising, set the world on fire last night. I don't know. I mean, that's the top 5, I think, guys. There's other guys that played some, but I don't. No one came out and just did like what Dame did his opening. I mean, Dame was a 4-year college guy, and none of these kids are. Some of them didn't even go to college or play college ball. So there's going to be a longer ramp up time. We just have to be patient, and hopefully tomorrow night, they get a win, and no one thinks that hey, look, there's some great performances. They're coming. Here they are. If they play like this, they could be a threat. No, they won't be a threat.
No, it's gonna be a ride
for what it is.
I don't care about wins and losses. I really don't. I just want to see growth, and that's why it's frustrating, because I feel like our coach is not putting our players in the best position to succeed. I think he has the right mindset. Like, I think he's a good support system for Scoot and Sharp and Simons.
I think the players like him. I think he's right. I think he's good at telling guys how to come in and deal with the the rigors of the NBA, and how to be a pro, and how to address things from a mental standpoint, and how to become a man, and things like that. I just don't know how effective he is at conveying offensive and defensive philosophy. That I just don't see.
No, and
regardless of things, people say,
structure.
"Well, we tanked." Well, we didn't start the season tanking the last 2 years.
No, it was like the last 10 games. We were not good.
Year before they tanked earlier because of Dame's injury, but last year they didn't tank until really, really late. They just weren't that good. They started out hot. They from December on, they were terrible.
Yeah.
And the year before they were bad the whole year. So this is nothing new. It's just now it's with players that aren't as veteran, and there's no Dame to keep them close.
Yep. Dame can't go nuclear.
All this did was mark a definitive reset, which needed to happen. If Dame was still here, it would have just pushed the reset off a year or two. We weren't going to compete. We haven't made the playoffs. Well, we haven't won a playoff series in 4 seasons before this. It's not like they were anywhere close to competing at a high level. We just finally ripped the Band-Aid off, and it's going to be something that Blazer fans have not experienced in a really, really long time. Some other franchises have had to go through, and we're going to feel it for this year and probably next year. If that gets you a Sar or a Montzulis, and next year, maybe you get lucky and you get a Cooper Flag, and you've got those 2 guys to pair with Scoot and Shaden as they start to grow and mature a little bit. Okay. Another 3 years after that, you might start to be good, but that's 5 years from now.
They're going to have a lot more competition for flag. I mean, I don't think there's going to be a lot of teams trying to tank this year. I just don't see it. The draft is not that good. It's going to be actually teams that are just bad, that are just generically, they're organically bad, that are going to be competing with us for those top picks. But next season, when you have somebody like Flag coming along, I think that it's going to be a lot harder. I think there's going to be more teams that are trying to lose games, especially at the end of the year, and you still never know.
We will be. I believe we're the youngest team in the league this year. I think next year we'll actually be younger.
Probably, because I don't think Brogdon and Grant are going to be here. I really don't.
I think Brogdon and Grant will be gone. So you take those guys off, everyone else on the roster ages up a year, but you take off the two oldest guys and add some younger guys, I think we could be even younger next year.
Yeah. No, I
And
totally
to
could see
say
that.
that, okay,
And a
hey,
rookie.
we're 5 years, we're 5 years down the road before this maybe even starts to turn around. Well, okay, great. That makes Scoot 24.
Well, and think
It's
about
going to
this.
take some time.
You're most likely you're removing Brogdon, you're removing Grant, and then you're adding at least one or two rookies next summer because you've got whatever our pick ends up being, and then probably Golden State's pick unless we trade it. So yeah, I mean you're going to probably add a couple more 19-year-olds to the team because I don't actually know how old. I'm going to guess that Holland and Edwards and those guys are all 19 because that's typically what they are, you know. So yeah, we're gonna be a young team and we're going to be a bad team for a few years. But I don't know where you go with coaching. Like if Billups isn't the guy, like I'm not sure. You don't go out and get a veteran coach because that doesn't really make sense. So do you try to promote somebody that's promising, that comes from a good system? And I just don't know who that would
Yes.
be. I don't know who that would be, but that's what I would want. I don't want to go get another retread.
Rick Adelman's son in Denver.
Yeah, there you go.
That's who I would like to see here.
Somebody that understands
Is Dave,
how to
is
put
it
in an
David
actual
Adelman?
offense or whatever, Yeah.
Well, and they credit their running Rick's stuff through his son with Denver. That's a lot of what they do is Adelman influenced. He's a good basketball mind. He's been around. Rick had a tremendous offense. What was it D'Antoni when he got elected to the Hall of Fame? He basically credited Rick Adelman for most of what he ran. He said, I took it and tweaked it a little bit. But he says
Yep.
that's all Rick Adelman stuff that I did. And D'Antoni's considered an offensive genius, and it was Adelman stuff, and he publicly acknowledged him. So I would love to see someone like a David Adelman here, young guy, get in, not a lot of pressure, grow with the guys. He's going to have some certainly more experience than Chauncey did, and he's gonna have a ring on his finger. He's like, hey,
It's
I
got
get
some
it's the Terry
credibility.
Stotts assistant coach ring, but it's a ring. He's a younger guy. I think it's a little more credibility. The players are going to buy in. It's new. It's not left over. Chauncey feels like it's a little bit left over from Dame, even
Yeah.
though he wasn't here that long. But this is his third year already.
Yep. No, I think
Um,
I'm just tired of these
so someone
one-dimensional
like that doesn't
offenses,
necessarily have to be him. Just someone like that.
I mean seriously, we have not had a good offensive coach since Adelman. I mean, really, I never thought Dunleavy was that good, but you look at McMillan. Mo
Oh,
Cheeks was
you know,
terrible. Mo Cheeks was terrible. McMillan just handed the ball to Roy. He was very similar to what we're doing right
well,
now.
Stotts had some really high ranked offensive teams. Now that was basically give it to Dame and get out of the way, but he didn't mess it up. The Blazers were a top tier offensive team for a lot of Stotts' years. So I wasn't a huge Stotts fan because of the defensive end, which is where ball games are won in the playoffs, was like an afterthought. But offensively, Stotts did some things, and he was the offensive head coach for Dallas when they won their title. So Stotts was fine on an offensive end. I didn't have a huge issue with that, other than it was so much ISO. But he had one of the best ISO players in the league, so I'm not sure how you're going to turn that down.
That's the problem, though. It's so hard to judge him when they have amazing. I mean, when he was in Dallas, he had Dirk, who you just can't defend Dirk. Like I hated playing against that guy in the playoffs because you kind of just had to say, well, Dirk's going to score a ton of points, and we're just going to have to try to defend everybody else. And
Well,
that's
but you had ball handlers around him. You had guys that could create around him.
yeah.
Jason Kidd and
Van
Kidd
Exel
and Berea.
Do you remember
and
Van Exel's the
I
one
mean,
that torched us in that playoff series? It wasn't actually Dirk
yeah.
that won it for them. It was Van Exel because we just couldn't account for him. It was Dirk was getting his, and if we'd been able to keep Van Exel quiet, we would have actually won that series. But Van Exel was just torching us. So anyway, all right, sir. Well, we're at an hour and 15 minutes. Probably a good place to close up. Try to do another show maybe this weekend or sometime early next week. I think there's a good chance we'll be more competitive tomorrow against Orlando. So tune into that one. See how
Blazers
they
by
do.
5.
I think they got a good chance. They're at home. It's Orlando. I think they got a good chance. So, any closing thoughts before we adjourn for the evening?
No, other than just it'll be interesting to see the adjustments they make from game one to
Yeah,
game two. Yes, they're
totally.
at home, crowd behind it, but it needs to be more involved. Grant needs to give a crap, and Scoot I think will have Scoot will shake off the jitters and have a better game. So probably those three things. The defense is it's just going to take time because they're also new and getting used to each other and they're so young. I don't expect that to be better, but I expect offensively they should be a little better. And when you're better on offense, you're more engaged on defense, so that'll help.
Yep. All right, everybody. Well, thank you very much for tuning in to another episode of Blazer Metrics Podcast. Please like, comment, subscribe, all those things. Check us out on Spotify if you want to be able to listen while you're out driving around, or what I like to do is listen to all the podcasts while I'm walking my dog at night. So we are on Spotify as well. But thanks again, everybody, for tuning in, and we will see you all next time.
Good night, everybody.